from the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
Thank you so much for listening. Georgia Now, weekdays 4 to 6 p.m., 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. The big headline of the day, let's just go to CBS News for that.
That breaking news, Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released emails that they say shows Donald Trump knew about Jeffrey Epstein's criminal activity. That is something the president has always denied. Ooh. CBS News congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is joining us now to talk more about this. So, Nicole, break down this email traffic between Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, and what does it say?
Well, so Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released 3 sets of emails. Keep in mind the committee had received thousands of documents from the Epstein estate, and so they have pulled out these emails that were uncovered, basically showing several exchanges between Jeffrey Epstein and others, including Ghislaine Maxwell, about President Trump. Obviously, he was not president at the time that these emails were written, but in one exchange, for instance, this was an exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, his associate, where he basically in 2011 writes that Donald Trump, quote, spent hours at my house with an alleged victim of sex trafficking. It also, the email refers to Trump as, quote, a dog that hasn't barked. There was a separate email exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and an author by the name of Michael Wolff. That took place in 2019, where Epstein shares that Donald Trump, quote, knew about the girls as he asked Ghislaine, referencing Ghislaine Maxwell, to stop it. And then there was a third email exchange involving Epstein and Wolff, where basically it seems that Trump was about to be interviewed by a network. And so the email exchange was about crafting an answer should Trump be asked about Jeffrey Epstein. So what Democrats on the House Oversight Committee allege is that the president may have known more about Jeffrey Epstein and his alleged illegal behavior. However, the president, as you pointed out, has denied any wrongdoing. He has not yet responded to this release. We did try to ask Speaker Mike Johnson about it a short time ago, but he, too, did not respond to our questions.
Well, he never knows anything when you ask him a question. I haven't heard about that. I couldn't tell you. That's usually what Mike Johnson's answer is to something that he claims to know absolutely nothing about, but always seems to have a snarky comment hours or a day later once he's been able to craft the message and get to some point of knowledge where he can say something without saying something or incriminating himself or the president. However, Carolyn Leavitt did get asked in the White House press briefing today for a response from the White House, and she finally gave one, sort of.
CBS News' Weijia Jiang just a moment ago had a chance to raise her hand and ask a question about Democrats' release of those emails tied to Jeffrey Epstein that allegedly mention Donald Trump. Here's her answer.
I have your statement about the new Epstein emails that have been released by House Democrats. Separate from why you believe the emails were made public, can you address their substance? Did the president ever spend hours at Jeffrey Epstein's house with a victim?
These emails prove absolutely nothing other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. And what President Trump has always said is that he was from Palm Beach, and so was Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein was a member at Mar-a-Lago until President Trump kicked him out because Jeffrey Epstein was a pedophile and he was a creep. And this email you refer to with the name of a victim that was unredacted now and has since been reported on in this room, so I will go ahead and say it, Virginia Giuffre. And it was CBS's own reporting, Weijia, that recently wrote that Miss Giuffre maintained, and God rest her soul, that she maintained that there was nothing inappropriate she ever witnessed, that President Trump was always extremely professional and friendly to her. And so I think it's a question worth asking the Democrat Party, and you should all go ask them after this briefing, of why they chose to redact that name of a victim who has already publicly made statements about her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein and is unfortunately no longer with us. Mary.
Thank you, Kelly. 2 questions on this. In the interest of transparency, why not just go ahead, release the full files on Epstein, get this all over with?
This administration has done more with respect to transparency when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein than any administration ever. In fact, this administration, the Department of Justice, has turned over tens of thousands of documents to the American people. We are cooperating and showing support for the House Oversight Committee. That's part of the reason you are seeing these documents that were released today, because of the House Oversight Committee's and Republicans' efforts to get these out to the public. This administration also moved, the Department of Justice also moved to unseal grand jury testimony, which we know, unfortunately, a judge declined those requests. So this administration has done more than any, and it just shows how this is truly a manufactured hoax by the Democrat Party. For now, they're talking about it all of a sudden because President Trump is in the Oval Office. But when Joe Biden was sitting in there, the Democrats never brought this up. This wasn't an issue that they cared about because they actually don't care about the victims in these cases. They care about trying to score political points against President Trump, as we have, of course, seen with this government shutdown. And this entire thing, again, it's not a coincidence to the American people at home. There are no coincidences in Washington, D.C. And it is not a coincidence that the Democrats leaked these emails to the fake news this morning ahead of Republicans reopening the government. This is another distraction campaign by the Democrat and the liberal media, and it's why I'm being asked questions about Epstein instead of the government reopening because of Republicans and President Trump.
But given your
Reagan.
interest in transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That's a defining factor of transparency. Having discussions with members of Congress about various issues, and I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room in the press briefing room.
Joining me, hopefully, to bring a little bit more clarity to this story and the government shutdown, the latest on that, maybe even the East Wing of the White House, if you can find it. Aaron Navarro, CBS News White House correspondent. Aaron, the answer that Carolyn Levitt gave to your correspondent and the other reporters in the briefing room today sort of leaves out some context. There's always the deflection about what Joe Biden did or didn't release, when the fact of the matter is the president back then, from 2021 to 2025, those files were under strict federal court orders. Federal judges controlled the records to protect the privacy of the victims, including minors, and Biden couldn't overrule those protections. But he also didn't run based on the fact that he was going to unseal all of those documents and files. So I never hear much pushback from the media on that, but that does deserve some clarity, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think the second point you brought up about the fact that the push to release these files was started, in a way, by President Trump in 2015, months before he began his 2016 campaign. He started to try and link conspiracy theories at the time, from what we knew about Jeffrey Epstein and what he's done, to former Democratic President Bill Clinton, who we know his name has been on flight logs, and that though the Clintons deny any involvement in any wrongdoing, but that really drummed up kind of this conspiracy theory among his supporters that the Democrats are linked and are complicit or implicated by the actions of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, fast forward nearly a decade or so later, what we're hearing is just more on the link between Trump and Epstein in the 1990s and early 2000s.
Yeah, I think it's important to note the distinction. It's not that the release of these emails sort of paints a smoking gun on Trump's participation in like any illegal sexual activity, but just that he actually knew a lot more than he led on to knowing when he's hanging out in the house with one of the victims, who I believe the White House announced it was Virginia Giuffre, correct?
That's correct. And we took a look at the full tranche of 20,000 documents, and we found that in what was released by the overall House Oversight Committee, that email did not have Virginia's name redacted. The House Democrats on that committee have a policy to redact victims' names at the request of their family. That's why in the emails we saw earlier on Wednesday morning, that name was redacted. But regardless, when our correspondent Weijia Zhang asked White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt to comment on the substance of these emails that we learned about this morning, you heard Levitt instead just say that they prove absolutely nothing. Quote, other than the fact that President Trump did nothing wrong. So not much engagement on what the email said. I would also note Levin went on to add that even in an interview and CBS News reporting, that Virginia Giuffre has maintained that she did not witness anything inappropriate when with President Trump, and said that in the limited interactions they've had, that Trump has only been friendly to Virginia. So at least that's what we know as of now.
But it does seem to contradict what President Trump has said for a long time, that he realized that Epstein was a scumbag and kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago and was out of his life in the early 2000s, when clearly he was hanging out in the Epstein home for hours with Virginia, who he alleges was stolen from him when she was an employee at Mar-a-Lago. Does it not contradict what he said?
Considering the emails in question was from 2011, the timeline is unclear on when Trump exactly was at, supposedly at Epstein's house.
I got you.
So unclear to say. We do know that the two men kind of broke things off around 2006 over many reasons, whether that be real estate. Trump has mentioned that, Epstein has, quote, poached young employees from Mar-a-Lago, as you mentioned, with Virginia Giuffre being one of them. But in terms of what we learned about today, the timeline on what exactly is being referenced is not known.
CBS News correspondent Aaron Navarro joining us to bring a little bit of clarity to the this story is one of those where you almost need to have like the bulletin board in the office with the lines drawn and the yarn and all that stuff, because it's hard to keep up with these timelines. But
it's a dense relationship.
Yeah. I got to be honest, too. It's got to be sort of difficult knowing like when all of the representatives for the House are going to be back. It's been planes, trains, and automobiles getting everybody back in session. When does Representative Grijalva get sworn in?
That's expected to happen today on Wednesday.
All right.
And we're also expecting to see a vote on that bill to reopen the government around 7 p.m. tonight. So it seems like enough House members made it by planes, trains, automobiles. I heard one story of a congressman via motorcycle making his way to D.C. So it seems like the government will be reopened tonight. And Caroline Leavitt said that as soon as that happens, President Trump will sign it.
Yeah, she seemed eager to twist this to pivot to getting the government reopened, to answering questions about that story. So I guess we can focus on that a little bit. Democrats in the Senate seem to think that they're going to get a conversation on ACA subsidies when Mike Johnson said last week he made no such promise in the House. Has there been any conversation about that?
In the White House, not necessarily. I think they're leaving that up to Congress to figure out, and that's kind of been Trump's approach during this whole shutdown, not really negotiating at all with congressional Democrats and telling Republicans in a way to hold the line in terms of their opposition. That being said, we did see earlier today House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries say that they might bring a vote on the floor to extend these subsidies for 3 years. We already saw House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, pour cold water on that, having any realistic chance of passing.
That would actually benefit Republicans, though. I mean, if you think about it, if you extend it for just 1 year, then this is political fodder for the 2026 midterms that they're already worried about getting a bloodbath in. I almost feel like Hakeem Jeffries is giving them an out that they don't really deserve.
You know, for Democrats, the silver lining that I've been hearing from talking to strategists since the shutdown was essentially starting to end, was that the silver lining is that they could use this opposition to extend these Affordable Care Act subsidies as a political weapon against Republicans in 2026, because now through their messaging throughout the past couple weeks of the shutdown, they're banking that voters will associate the Republican Party with their health care premiums rising. Whether that pays out, we'll see.
All right. White House Washington correspondent with CBS News, Aaron Navarro, joining the Ron Show today. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you answering these questions for me, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
But there are still more questions. Back to Caroline Leavitt's press conference today.
If the president is considering a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell.
Again, he's answered this repeatedly. It's not something he's talking about or even thinking about at this moment in time. I can assure you of that.
Yeah. However, a whistleblower, this is me reading from Fox News, by the way, y'all. A whistleblower has claimed that Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, receives concierge-style treatment at the minimum security prison camp she was recently transferred to. Democrats on the House Judiciary Committee revealed that a whistleblower came forward to them who claimed that Ghislaine Maxwell was receiving favorable treatment at the prison camp she was transferred to in August, according to NBC News. The whistleblower claimed Maxwell received, quote, concierge-style treatment at federal prison Camp Bryan in Texas, which includes after-hours permission to use the exercise area, customized meals in prison, time to spend with puppies being trained to become service dogs, and more. The whistleblower claimed one of the top prison camp officials complained he's sick of having to be Maxwell's bitch. I'm sure this is all mere coincidence, right? Maxwell was transferred from a federal prison facility in Tallahassee, Florida, to FPC Bryan, her attorney previously told Fox News Digital. Neither the Bureau of Prisons nor Maxwell's attorney gave a reason for the move. And that's how we start the Ron Show today. Thank you so much for listening. On Georgia Now, Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Back after this. I mean, here's the facts. Donald Trump told us when he first ran for president that his followers could know for a fact that he shot a human being in broad daylight on the busiest street in New York City, and he wouldn't lose a follower. He's not wrong. Do you think this Epstein stuff, anything shy of, gross, photos of Donald in copulation with and under, anything shy of that? And even then, there's going to be the deep fake. Oh, by the way, John Ossoff got deep faked in a campaign ad. Yeah, we'll talk about that next segment. In the meanwhile, anything shy, I mean, the hot mic moments, the Access Hollywood hot mic moments, the grab her by the, that should have been enough. The mocking of a disabled reporter should have been enough. The Russia, if you're listening, followed by Russia clearly listening, should have been enough. I don't know that there's anything that will sink that core base of support that Donald Trump has. Although you're seeing fractures. We're watching, we've chronicled this for weeks now, the maturation, the education of Marjorie Taylor Greene, who she ain't happy about the 50-year mortgage stuff. In fact, the White House now says they're not happy with the 50-year mortgage stuff coming out. By the way, that came from Bill Pulte, he of Pulte Homes, who now has a position in the Trump White House, in the Trump administration. But they did not sign off on the 50-year loan idea that he was floating. Anyway, House Oversight Committee ranking member Robert Garcia commenting on the emails released today in a story that Ashley Murray filed with the state newsrooms and Georgia Recorder. He said in a statement that the emails, quote, raise glaring questions about what else the White House is hiding in the nature of the relationship between Epstein and the president. The Department of Justice must fully release the Epstein files to the public immediately. The Oversight Committee will continue pushing for answers and will not stop until we get justice for the victims. Within hours of the committee Democrats' release of the emails, committee Republican leaders issued a brief press release linking to, quote, an additional 20,000 pages of documents received from the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, contained on Google Drive and Dropbox clouds. You heard Aaron Navarro refer to that on this show. The bipartisan committee investigation began shortly after the FBI released a July memo stating the Department of Justice would not be releasing any further information on the government's sex trafficking investigation into Epstein. Epstein, of course, found dead, apparently, by suicide in August 2019. Who was president then? In a Manhattan jail cell where he was awaiting federal trial. The FBI's announcement that the agency would not release further details caused a firestorm of demands to release all investigative material, even among Trump's supporters in Congress and far-right media influencers, including Megyn Kelly and the late Charlie Kirk. Trump campaigned on releasing what are often referred to as the Epstein files. So this bipartisan effort in the House of Representatives is aiming to force a vote on the release of the files as soon as this week after House Speaker Mike Johnson swears in Arizona Democrat Adelaida Grijalva. Grijalva pledged to be the final signature needed on a discharge petition by Thomas Massie, Republican, Ro Khanna, Democrat, that will compel a floor vote on a bill to release all Epstein investigative files. More from Ashley Murray's piece in the Georgia Recorder, by the way. Since the FBI memo, a magnifying glass has been fixed on Trump's past relationship with Epstein. The president sued the Wall Street Journal for reporting on a 50th birthday card Trump allegedly gave to Epstein. The card featured a cryptic message and a doodle of a naked woman with Trump's apparent signature mimicking pubic hair. The Journal also reported that Attorney General Pam Bondi briefed the president in May that his name appeared in the Epstein case files. The context in which his name appeared is unclear. I'm going to give you my take. I am not all that certain that Donald Trump did any diddling with anybody underage. Not sure. Not going to try and make that claim. But I would say that I think Donald Trump clearly knew what Jeffrey Epstein was up to and everybody in the Epstein orbit. And like Jeffrey, who liked to have blackmail on those that he needed to have blackmail on just in case, I think Donald is the same kind of guy. Having blackmail on those he needs to have blackmail on. The question is what Donald Trump knew when he knew it. And to date, the president seems to have inferred that he didn't know anything until well after and when, of course, Epstein went to trial. That excuse doesn't seem to match up with what we're seeing in print. And it's 10 years into this now. It's just funny to me how that there are so many, air quote, hoaxes that paint him in such a negative light. So much smoke, and yet there can't be any fire, according to this man and his sycophants. I'm going to explain to you why I think now and this could be different when the Ron Show returns.
Broadcasting 5 days a week to make common sense common again. This is The Ron Show.
Heard weekdays on Georgia Now, 4 to 6 p.m., 11 p.m. Progressive Voices via TuneIn or via podcast. By the way, I want to thank Brendan for stepping in to help me get my podcast episodes uploaded and out and about. I've been immersed. Let's just put it, that's a nice way of saying I have been bombarded with stuff since, for a while now. Moving was something of an energy drain, a time suck, all that good stuff. Utilities and sign. Oh my God, what a nightmare. Anyway, Brendan is new to the Georgia Now team and is picking up some of the stuff that has just fallen by the wayside for me. So Brendan Rivers, shout out to you, buddy. So yeah, you can listen to the show wherever you podcast. I may be missing 2 or 3 from last week, and I'll work on that. Trust me, we'll get that taken care of as soon as we can. In the meanwhile, it's not my job to tell Georgia GOP voters how they should vote in their primary. I look at the pit. It's all a pit of snakes. What do I care? But I have to tell you, Mike Collins is a tremendous piece of shit. I can't even sugarcoat that. He's just the scummiest of scumbags. And we are living in an era where I feel like there's this teetering towards a pivot where the GOP could find itself electing more of what I'll call the Kemp brand of Republican. And again, this ain't me endorsing anybody in the GOP Georgia Senate primary. I happen to think, looking at a football coach who wasn't a very good football coach and going, oh, he'd be a great candidate, ain't smart. Much like Donald Trump looking at a former football player who was a great here in Georgia 4 decades ago, wasn't smart either. Again, I'm not endorsing anybody. But I think if you had to start with a list from the bottom up, you got it's a neck. Well, it's not even a neck and neck. I mean, Derek Dooley, for all of his faults and shortcomings, he's not an asshole. He's not scum. He's just not up for the job. I mean, if it comes down to a binary situation, well, at least he's not a scumbag. Is the most salient positive thing you can say about Derek Dooley. But still, he ain't Mike Collins. I have plenty of reason to back up my assertion that Mike Collins is a no-good, low-life scumbag. But I'm going to give you just the latest. And it should be enough. Patricia Murphy files this op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution overnight. I had a call from a friend this week. She said, did you see that Ossoff video about the shutdown? She asked about the Democratic Senator John Ossoff, incredulous that the Georgia Democrat would say what he was saying in the online video. Murphy says, I hadn't seen the video she was talking about, but a little looking turned up a clip of Ossoff on Representative Mike Collins' Campaign X account. Collins, a Republican from Jackson, is one of 3 candidates in the heated GOP primary for Ossoff's Senate seat. I fully realize you're only getting this via audio, but we'll try and include this in the show notes at ronshowatl.com. Here is that deep fake video, or at least the audio from it.
Hi, it's Senator John Ossoff. I just voted to keep the government shut down. They say it'll hurt farmers, but I wouldn't know. I've only seen a farm on Instagram. And SNAP recipients don't think they're at my New York or California fundraisers. So who cares? Chuck Schumer said it was a good idea, and I could never say no to my boss.
The irony of Mike Collins, chief Trump bootlicker, talking about somebody else having a boss is just too rich for me. But I'm going to share with you some thoughts and some observations from Patricia Murphy. She said the video looks real enough. It does. And it should, since the image comes from Ossoff's official Senate portrait, complete with a Senate pin on the lapel of his suit. But the words, he says, are over the top enough that it's not entirely clear if the video is authentic or not. She then points out that a small disclaimer tells viewers the video is generated by AI, but the disclaimer is only visible on a phone if you click the video to watch it on a full screen and click it again to eliminate the caption that covers it. Patricia Murphy writing, the Georgia Democratic Party slammed the video. Instead of trying to deceive voters with deepfake videos, low-integrity Congressman Mike Collins should explain why he supports doubling Georgia's health insurance premiums. It's a valid statement. And yes, they're right. Low integrity. That's what Mike Collins is. But Collins' campaign had no apologies for the video. We don't apologize for nothing. We're Americans. Nor any plans to stop doctoring Ossoff into new videos in the future. As technology evolves and creates new opportunities to reach and communicate with voters, the Collins campaign will be at the forefront, embracing new tactics and strategies that pierce through the lopsided legacy media coverage and deliver our message directly to voters, according to a campaign spokesman. Patricia Murphy writing, I'm guessing I'm the lopsided legacy media, but I'm not the only person who sees AI-generated videos from campaigns as going down the steep side of a slippery slope. Republicans and Democrats, she writes, have raised alarms in recent years about the dangers ahead, including Ossoff himself, who told a Senate Rules Committee hearing in 2023 that anyone could use AI to, quote, willfully, knowingly, and with extreme realism, fakely depict you or any one of us, or a candidate challenging us, making statements we never made that's indistinguishable to the consumer of the media from a realistic documentation of our speech. Murphy writing, that's where we are now. Fast forward 3 or 6 months, and the Ossoff video could be further manipulated by others or just wanted to see a fakes about Ossoff, Collins, and anyone else running for office in Georgia, no matter their party. Does it surprise me that MAGA Mike Collins would embrace this tactic? Hell no. Hell no. But I want to see the rest of the Republican Party, the sane wing of the Republican Party, speak out against this. Here again, what the spokesman from the Collins campaign said about willingly, knowingly using deepfake, admitting that they're doing so, despite knowing that the disclaimer isn't all that apparent. As technology evolves and creates new opportunities to reach and communicate with voters, the Collins campaign will be at the forefront, embracing new tactics and strategies. You can infer what you want from that, but here's how it comes across to me. As technology evolves and creates new opportunities to misinform voters, the Collins campaign will be at the forefront, embracing such tactics and strategies. That's the idea. That is how Republicans win hearts and minds of voters. And they've done so for decades and largely unchallenged, except by the air quote legacy media, who doesn't necessarily even push back on them all that hard. They just go about doing their jobs as journalists, reporting the facts. And if a Republican were to wander onto a dais where there's a reporter asking questions at a debate, it's all fake news. You're a nasty woman. You're nasty. Nobody believes you. You're a joke. AI is just giving the GOP another mechanism for willfully misinforming and disinforming their base. And for the life of me, I'll never understand how there isn't erosion of that base that finally comes to the conclusion, wait, You mean they've been lying to us all this time? You mean that's bullshit? You mean this guy's been feeding me a line of bull all this time? I don't. And even then, it's just kind of creepy cult like when you point out to them and clearly show them something that they've been lied to about by their base, and it comes down to, well, what about this, or well, off to something else, or instead of letting it wash over them, they've been lied to about something and starting to get a little hot under the collar about being lied to. Man, can I just tell you, when I was a kid, breaking something didn't get me in nearly as much trouble. Bad grades, I didn't make many bad grades until like 7th, 8th grade. And even then, they were just, struggling at C's and becoming B's by the final report. Nothing got me in trouble with my parents quite like lying to them. Nothing. Dude, I used to get my tan high. I just completely heated. We had the souvenir Six Flags paddle. Thank you, Six Flags, for selling wooden paddles back in the 80s. What the were you thinking? They did. They sold souvenir Six Flags paddles. I don't know if they still do or not. But they were like wood etched with the Six Flags logo paddles. They sold these at the theme park. Who wants to go home from a day at Six Flags with a wooden paddle? I would have liked the snow globe, but you got a paddle? Yeah, man. I think my bony butt finally cracked that paddle. It was a few years, but and listen, I'm not sitting here trying to throw my sister under the bus. She caught more of the business end of that paddle than I did. But man, when I got it, it was relentless, and it was usually because I lied. I didn't tell the truth, I was trying to shield myself from the repercussions of something else, and it was the lie that always pissed my parents off the most. At what point in time do MAGA voters get tired of being lied to? And when the folks lying to them literally admit, yeah, we're lying, we're going to use this tactic. I'm sorry, what? At what point in time does somebody fly off the handle and grab a paddle and start wailing away on them? I mean, figuratively, not literally. Because I don't condone violence or corporal punishment. Whew. And say what you will, people give Democrats or legacy media a hard time about not being able to deal with Trumpism, the Trump era, in an effective way. And I have to say, I don't think it's anyone's fault except for those that have been so easily manipulated. But how do you point out to them that they're being manipulated if they don't seem to care? They don't get hot under the collar when it's proven to them that they've been lied to. You think No King's Day is a big deal? The rush to the streets from MAGA for all the many and varied ways they've been lied to should swell the arteries and corridors and streets and avenues of America's major cities. Oh, that's right. They don't live in them. They don't like coming to them. They should at least swell the suburban 4-lane roads with those damn turn lanes. And okay, let's. They all of a sudden like traffic circles. Okay, fine. Roundabouts. You guys should be storming the roundabouts and the blinky lights in the rural parts of wherever it is that you live. When is this happening? Like, when are you going to get mad? I mean, everybody else outside the MAGA bubble, we're all pointing fingers at each other. The media is not doing this well enough. And yes, as you heard me mention earlier in the show, I spoke to Aaron Navarro with CBS News, and I'm like, when is somebody going to challenge the White House and say, instead of saying, why didn't the Biden White House release the Epstein files, somebody in the briefing room say, well, they were under court order, and there's nothing that president could have done at that time. Because he had a DOJ that adhered to the law. Too much so, if you ask me. Okay, I should clarify that. I don't think they adhered too much. I think they took too long, Merrick Garland, in addressing what needed to be addressed on day one, which is why we are in Presidential Insanity V2.0. But yeah, I mean, we can sit here and point fingers about all of us, outside that bubble that seem to have some sense of sanity and go, well, you're not doing this right. You're not. Yeah, I absolutely. We all have to figure out a better way, but it's a lot like herding cats, right? We're all trying to do different things in different ways and for different motives and, different organizations and different missions, et cetera, and so on. So we're not all in lockstep all the time. But if there's any group of voter or group of American to blame for the condition we're in now, it is simply those who know they're being lied to, who are figuring out even just now, I guess, that they're being lied to, that they don't understand that something smells like shit every time Carolyn Leavitt opens her mouth or her boss opens his mouth or Mike Collins throws a deepfake video on the X platform and literally says, oh, yeah, I mean, we put a disclaimer on there. You can't see it, but it's there. And we're going to use this tactic to communicate with voters. It's no one's fault but the people being willfully manipulated by who figure out that they're being willfully manipulated. It's no one's fault but theirs that we are where we are as a nation right now. Woe is the soybean farmer who was the MAGA voter who has lost his or her farm due to the tariffs. Woe is the home builder, and I'll get to Bill Pulte here in a minute, who is grasping at straws thinking, maybe we can do a 50-year mortgage. Who the hell lives long enough to survive a 50-year mortgage? I will touch on that. All the MAGA voters who lost their SNAP benefits and the White House still fighting to back pay those benefits. Or woe is the MAGA voter who was a federal employee who lost his or her job in the rifts. You f*** around, you found out. And back to the analogy with my parents, there were other parents on the block who knew that their kid was lying to them and let them get away with it. Just kind of give them that look like, and let them get away with it. And the lies would pile up and build up, and the kid would think, my God, these rubes will take anything I say, and I can get away with bloody murder. That kid would get away with bloody murder. That kid would get away with, unspeakable acts. Well, what do you think happens with the childlike mind that's controlling the White House right now? He has pushed the envelope to get away with just about anything that he believes his base will let him get away with. And to date, they haven't pushed back on much. We're only now starting to see some semblance of a spine within the GOP to push back on who is, to my mind, the lamest of lame duck presidents. 10 months into his final term, and he's reaching out to the 4 Congress people, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene among them, to try and get them to change their mind about how they're going to vote on dispensing with the Epstein files, and they're not hearing it. They're not willing to discuss that. So finally, the fever is seeming to break with those who should be parenting this spoiled octogenarian. Finally, somebody's grabbing the paddle and saying, wait, what? What did you say? You want to try that on me again? And maybe it's not too late for some responsible parenting on the right to deal with their spoiled child. I want to say I have a hunch in the next few weeks that's going to come to bear. But my God, we've been dealing with this man baby for 10 damned years. And there's been plenty of reason to smite him with a paddle. Figuratively, not literally. And yet, Russia, the perfect phone call, the grab him by the pussy, none of that was enough. We're to believe that him knowing that Epstein was doing Epstein things is supposed to be enough. And yet, I still have my doubts that this is what's going to take him down. And somehow, all of this conversation began with me talking about Mike Collins knowingly using AI deepfakes in his campaign social media. So again, I'm not here. It's not my job to tell Republicans how they need to vote, because Republicans have long proven that they're irresponsible with how they vote, which I guess gives Mike Collins something of an advantage in the Georgia GOP Senate primary. It's The Ron Show on Georgia Now, Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. So there's a little something more to the whole deep fake video thing that I think is just sort of comical. And again, this just shows how the GOP can't police itself. Back to Patricia Murphy's op-ed in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on Representative Mike Collins and his campaign using a deep fake video of Senator Jon Ossoff. State Representatives Todd Jones, Republican of Cumming, who I believe if Jeff Duncan were to have run for a House seat, could run for that seat instead of running for governor. And help flip the House. Anyway, State Representative Todd Jones, Republican of Cumming, and Brad Thomas, a Cherokee County Republican, have both endorsed Mike Collins in his Senate race. Together, they're also the leaders of an effort to criminalize the use of deepfakes in Georgia campaigns meant to deceive voters. You cannot make shit up. Legislation introduced twice by Jones and Thomas would require clear disclosure of AI content and ban AI videos 60 days ahead of an election. Okay, so we're not 60 days ahead of an election. But how about the clear disclosure of AI content part? To drive the point home for some of their less tech-savvy colleagues about what is coming, Jones and Thomas created a deepfake of their own and played it at a House hearing in 2024. The video showed State Representative Colton Moore, Republican of Trenton, endorsing the AI bill that he had vocally opposed.
Mallory, this is Senator Colton Moore, chairman of the Georgia Freedom Caucus. I know that I don't always see eye to eye with many of you.
It's the unibrow.
Luckily, by the power of AI, I am here to speak in favor of a Republican bill, proof that miracles do happen. HB 986 is a great bill that addresses one of the single most imminent threats to our election integrity. It creates a crime to upload materially deceptive media with the knowledge of its falsity and the intent to influence an election, create confusion about the administration of an election, or to influence a referendum. The media addressed in this bill includes video, audio, or images that appear to depict a real individual's speech or conduct that did not occur in reality and would appear to a reasonable observer to be true. It clearly defines a person as individuals operating within a PAC, a campaign, or a political party. It is very specific to ensure it in no way infringes on any Georgia citizen's First Amendment rights. This bill only applies to career politicians and their deep state political operatives. However, I would ask the committee, how is using my biometric data, like my voice and likeness, to create media supporting a policy that I clearly don't agree with, the First Amendment right of another person? What if I were to say, I am Senator Colton Moore and I'm running for Congress in Georgia's 14th Congressional District?
Ooh.
Now that voice clip is spread across my district. The overwhelming number of Georgians believe the use of my personal characteristics against my will is fraud, but our laws don't currently reflect that. If AI can be used to make Colton Moore speak in favor of a popular piece of legislation, it can be used to make any one of you say things you've never said.
That's right.
Are you prepared to deal with the consequences of allowing AI deepfakes to remain a viable and legal campaign strategy? This deepfake was made by Representative Brad Thomas and Todd Jones and was an impersonation of Mallory Staples and Colton Moore. A very cheap and readily available version of artificial intelligence was used to make all of the content you just heard. Anyone could have created this content. Mallory, as we've seen here today, nobody is safe from AI deep fakes.
Wow, it really is breathtaking how easily we can become the victims of an AI deep fake. If we don't take action to keep this from becoming a viable campaign strategy, it will come back to bite us.
Unless, as Mike Collins believes, it can be used to the GOP's advantage. It's The Ron Show on Georgia Now, Progressive Voices via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. Thanks for listening.
from the heart of the city too busy to hate. A progressive voice making too much sense for corporate media's comfort. This is The Ron Show, where we the people come first. Here's your host, Ron Roberts.
So you may or may not know this about me if you're sort of new to the show. You know, Georgia Now's new, and so we've got new audience, and I'm loving that. Absolutely loving that. The 2-hour version of this show, you can hear that's a work in progress. There are some days where it's a 1-hour show on repeat, and some days where it's a full 2 hours. I'm making a go of a full 2 hours today. Let's see how this goes. Anyway, a little bit about me. I am a 51-year-old divorced gay man, born and raised in Georgia, suburban Augusta, who wound up in Atlanta to manage a radio station here, the infamous Star 94, although it had been misnomered Star 94.1, really dumb decision years and years ago. I tried rectifying that in my 1 year helming that ship and got pushed back from ownership at the time. They eventually did it. I was right. Anyway, I moved here to manage a radio station, and then, that was a bit of a dumpster fire after a year, personnel issues, and, it was just a mess. So I dipped, got into real estate. COVID happened shortly after I got into real estate, which was just chef's kiss for real estate, right? And even when you're, experiencing all the sales frenzies that happened after COVID, like I was new to the market, so I didn't have buyers that could afford to outpace and outspend other people. So it's been a struggle. The divorce came by surprise. I wound up going into some therapy to kind of come to grips with all that, because it really did. It just all caught me by surprise. And honestly, I probably should have been talking to someone about my mental health for quite a while. I lost my mom to cancer when she was 59, I think. And back in 2011, 3 months later, I met who would eventually be my husband after that. And so it sort of delayed some of the ramifications, the issues that came from losing my mother prematurely, I believe. Anyway, it was in that therapy, months and months of therapy, and by the way, it was all virtual at the time because, again, COVID, we came to the conclusion, she and I did, my therapist and I, that I needed to do something. I needed to find my broadcast itch to scratch again. And so this show sort of came from that. I reached out to the gentleman who owned America One Radio, streaming audio station then at the time, which would eventually become Georgia Now here recently. Jeremy, and I said, hey, so my therapist and I had this wild idea. You know, she knows that I talk a lot about politics and that I'm well-versed in it and blah, 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 blah. And thought, have you thought about doing a show or a podcast? And I found your station and I thought, well, if I'm going to do a show, let's do this like radio, because I worked in radio 28 plus years, right? And he thought I was crazy, I'm sure. He didn't say that, but he thought I was crazy, I'm sure. He said, yeah, sure. Why don't you do a test run of this show? And I said, well, I'd like to do 5 days a week. And he goes, okay. Why don't you do a test run for a week of this show, put it to bed, and throw it on SoundCloud or something like that, and let me listen to it. So I did. And he said, okay, clearly you can do this, as crude as it might have been at that point in time. And so he gave me a slot. He gave me a 1-hour slot. And here we are. 3 years later, here we are. So that's a little bit about how I came to where I am right now, and you're listening to me. I'm also a cat dad. That's number one priority for me. Love my girl Dooley. That's my baby. We had to lay Herschel to rest about 6 weeks ago. That was brutal. I still get choked up about it. I also own my own streaming audio station. It's called Audio Gay TL on the App Store, Google Play, or at audiogaytl.com, GAYTL. I am this show's political talk show host. I am the station manager for Georgia Now. And by the way, thankfully, the owners of this station, Georgia Now, have sort of taken on a lot of the reins while I've been moving and getting this station launched and all that stuff. And my day-to-day operation of that is forthcoming, but I'm very much looking forward to it and growing this product, Georgia Now, and bringing on other Georgia-based, Southern-based voices to add to the collective here. I'm also a realtor. I was promise you from the minute I started this segment, that's where I was getting to. Anyway, I am a realtor. Again, I got into real estate just before COVID. So those of you that can find me on, if you're looking to buy or sell a home in Metro Atlanta, it's really easy. You can find me on social media at Ron on the Real, REAL, Ron on the Real. I thought it was marketing genius, right? I work with a virtual agency. It's called EXP. EXP's kind of become a big name in real estate industries since COVID, ironically, because they're virtual. You know, they don't have brick and mortar. So anyway, I say all this to say most of the time I manage to balance all of this stuff. And some of the time, those different hats that I wear, those specialties, they intertwine. And this is one of those times. We're now 10 months into version 2.0 of the Insanity in Charge. And one of the latest rectum polls is the floating of the awfulest of ideas, I think, in real estate. A 50-year mortgage to fix America's housing crisis. It's stupid. It's really stupid. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene knows it's stupid. Here's why she and I are right, what needs to happen instead, and how the presidency of the Mango Menace is only making matters worse. First, a little bit of a background here. Marjorie Taylor Greene took to social media to say, I don't like 50-year mortgages as the solution to the housing affordability crisis. It will ultimately reward the banks, mortgage lenders, and home builders while people pay far more interest over time and die before they ever pay off their home. In debt forever, in debt for life, she says. Instead, stop companies and asset managers from buying up single-family homes, which has driven the price of homes and forced home buyers to compete with corporations that turn thousands of homes into permanent rental homes. Let people with a good rent history qualify for mortgages. Yo, Marjorie Taylor Greene is sounding woker by the minute. But she's not wrong. The notion of a 50-year mortgage is the exact opposite of what America's housing situation needs. Giving banks more time to squeeze interest out of homeowners who will likely never see the end of a 50-year mortgage doesn't serve the American people. What we the people need instead is a home building boom. A leash on private equity from snapping up homes, and working class Americans a boost from Uncle Sam to overcome the sheer unaffordability that exists now until the building boom catches supply up with demand. Trump's tariff chicanery, well, that hasn't helped the building industry either. From an article I'll include in the show notes at ronshowatl.com, the folks at Under the Hard Hat write, by targeting lumber tariffs and additional levies on cabinets and upholstered wood goods, the government aims to shift demand toward U.S. manufacturers and reduce reliance on foreign imports. Builders will feel this directly in material costs, and margins may be squeezed or shifted to buyers. You know it's going to be shifted to buyers. Home builder stocks dipped after the announcement as investors anticipated higher construction expenses. If the tariffs hold, and escalate, smaller builders without strong purchasing power or supplier relationships may struggle the most. That means fewer competitive bids and higher base costs across the industry. Did you hear anything in that piece that sounded good for the home buying consumer? Of course not. Now, here's the thing. There is a bit of a civil war brewing within MAGA with regards to this 50-year mortgage kerfuffle. The director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, Bill Pulte, is the origin of this 50-year mortgage nonsense. And if his name sounds familiar, if you work in home building or real estate, Pulte, P-U-L-T-E, if it sounds familiar, it should, because he is the Bill Pulte of Pulte Homes. It's like having Monsanto in the FDA, which, hey, even the Obama administration had Monsanto execs in the FDA. From Dasha Burns and Sophia Kai at Politico. White House officials are furious with Bill Pulte, the Federal Housing Finance Agency director, who talked the president into suggesting a 50-year mortgage plan. So White House officials are mad with Bill Pulte, who got Donald Trump's ear and convinced Donald Trump to suggest a 50-year mortgage plan. His handlers are mad that they didn't handle him, that somebody else got around them to Sleepy Don. You all saw those photos, right? The White House was blindsided by the idea, according to two people familiar with the situation, granted anonymity to discuss internal thinking, and is now dealing with a furious backlash from conservative allies, business leaders, and lawmakers, including Marjorie Taylor Greene. On Saturday evening, Pulte arrived at President Donald Trump's Palm Beach Golf Club with a roughly 3x5 poster board in hand. A graphic of former President Franklin Roosevelt appeared below 30-year mortgage, and one of Trump below 50-year mortgage. The headline was, Great American Presidents. Roughly 10 minutes later, Trump posted that image to Truth Social, according to one of the people familiar who was with the president at the time. That is Mr. Art of the Deal. Oh, that's right. He didn't write that book either. He had somebody write that for him. That is the leader, the man who is such a strong mind, the originator of such great ideas, that somebody could walk in with a poster board of a photo of him next to FDR and great presidents written below them, and he swayed. This is the guy we send in to deal with Vladimir Putin, to have one-on-ones with Volodymyr Zelensky, the one we're supposed to believe was able to orchestrate a deal with Netanyahu and Arab leaders? Please. Almost immediately, back to Politico, aides are fielding angry phone calls from those who thought the idea, which would endorse a 50-year payback period for a mortgage, was both bad politics and bad policy. A move that could also raise housing costs in the long run, the person said. You don't think? He just sold POTUS a bill of goods that wasn't necessarily accurate, the person said. He said FDR did it, you can do it, it's going to be a big thing. But he didn't tell him about all the unintended consequences. The episode underscores the haphazard ways consequential policies are sometimes brought before the president and how Trump's governed by whim nature can backfire. Anything that goes before POTUS needs to be vetted, said the person present for Pulte's poster presentation. That's right. Before you feed the president, you got to put it in a blender and then serve it to him by spoon. Put a bib around his neck. And a lot of times with Pulte, they're not vetted. He just goes straight up to POTUS. One of the two people familiar said there is more fallout from this idea than almost any other policy proposal of the second term, including from the MAGA base. Trump on Monday downplayed the proposal and said it wasn't a big deal. All it means is you pay less per month, Trump said on a Fox News show hosted by Laura Ingraham. Oh, my God. By the way, that interview. I mean, there's an entire show of fodder there, and I'll get to it. You just give me some time. Pay it over a longer period of time. It's not like a big factor. It might help a little bit. Does paying your student loan debt over a 25 to 30 year period, has that really, tell me how that's benefited you, American citizen, you college graduate? Has the 72-month car payment, how does that, who does that benefit the most? I would tell you as a realtor, by the way, if you can swing it, the 30-year mortgage is the standard bearer right now. But I'm telling you, as a realtor, if you can swing it, and it'll save you tens, if not hundreds of thousands, depending on the price of your home, over the course of that loan term, look at the 15-year mortgage. Why not? If you can pay off a car that costs, I don't know, $60,000 in 4 years, then you can pay off a home that costs $300,000, for example, 5 times as much. You should be able to pay that off in 20 years, right? Maybe 15. Just squeeze a little bit more. I mean, it's your home. It should be the thing you spend the most money on each month. Your home. What's going to create that generational wealth for you? That generational wealth that you'll pass on to your loved ones. It's the principal difference right now in the wealth gap. It's what's created most of the wealth gap. I mean, there are other factors, don't get me wrong. Hiring bias, housing bias, blockbusting, redlining, all that stuff. But, and all of that kind of comes into that, right? It is the single biggest factor creating the wealth gap between white Americans and everybody else, home ownership. But a 50-year mortgage? Oh, yeah. No, it's a piss poor idea. It's a piss poor idea that, oddly enough, the man whose family owns Pulte Homes came up with to float before the president of the United States, and Sleepy Don was like, yeah, no, I like this idea. It's a good idea, especially because, you made this fancy poster. And here I am again, agreeing with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's The Ron Show on Georgia Now, Progressive Voice via TuneIn or wherever you podcast. You can follow The Ron Show on your preferred social media platforms at Ron Show ATL, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Substack, Blue Sky. I think I covered them all. Bruce Fenger joins me. I came across Bruce because somebody shared his Facebook post, and I thought at first, I was like, wow, this is very optimistic, pie-in-the-sky, Democratic spin, and I really didn't want to give it a whole lot of credence, but the more I read about it, the more I was like, you know what, we need all the positivity we can get. I thought we were on high after the Tuesday election results last week, and then the grand bargain with the 8 Senate Democrats, 3 of whom are really the ones who caved, to come up with the deal to reopen the government. First things first, and because I only have about 6 minutes in this segment, and then I'll come back to you for another 10 or 15 after the break. I want to get your reaction, Bruce, because I know you're really passionate about the ties to Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. I'm sure by now you've seen some of the emails that House Democrats have released that sort of implicate that Donald Trump knew more than he led on to knowing about.
The thing is, it's still irrelevant, actually. Epstein's totally irrelevant. If you want to see who Donald Trump was, look at Trump model management and look what he did. Epstein was a small fish compared to Trump. Trump was an international sex trafficker, and you can find the receipts, you can find the people that he trafficked. I think getting worried about Epstein was comparatively a good man compared to what Donald Trump was doing. Donald Trump was working, getting fake visas for girls to come to the United States, some underage, some of age, but it didn't matter. He packed them all into single rooms with bunk beds so that you would have 4 to 6 people sharing a room, spending $3,000 a piece to be able to do so. Model managements, they would certify when they were bringing these girls into the country that they would make a certain amount of money as full-time employees. They never made that money. One girl actually sued Trump, and in a 3-year period, she made a total of $4,800.
Oh, wow.
So compared to Epstein would meet various girls from various places, some from Jean Bloc, forgot Duval, I think his name was. But a lot of others would be from street girls or whatever. He promised them luxury, to make lots of money, to fly and meet influential people, and to live the good life. And for the most part, that's what he gave them. Trump, on the other hand, promised them glamour of walking down a model stage, but what he gave them was basically indebted slavery. As far as being a pedophile, I mean, we only have to look at Miss Teen USA when he bragged to Howard Stern about how he liked to go in there and look at the girls.
Yeah.
And totally, why are we worried about Epstein? He was a minor player compared to Trump and Zamboli.
I guess the Epstein thing is just more along the lines of Epstein was actually caught and convicted, and there's just so many ties between the two, visually, photographically, and otherwise, that it just seems like it's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, but the problem is we're ignoring some real critical evidence here on Trump model management by looking at Epstein. And no matter what is shown with Epstein, and I'm sure there's much, but it's nothing compared to what Donald was doing by himself. He was a far dirtier person. Look up Trump model management. Start following the threads on here, and he's more than just a little bit dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, he's filthy.
Yeah, I mean, there's no irony that he shut down the modeling agency when he decided to run for president. I mean, the dates are eerily lining up. Actually, I'm going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk with Bruce Fenger, former stockbroker, adjunct instructor, and life coach, about the positive spin on ending the government shutdown from the Democrats' point of view when the Ron Show returns.
It was a normal day.
He was in some minor accident, a fender bender.
And I had this impulse to call him, but I didn't, because I thought I could call him later that week.
He abandoned the car, he came home, and he shot himself without ever talking to anyone.
When I came home that night and I found her, they told me that she had shot herself, and I couldn't believe it.
I asked if he was okay.
Taking a gun into your house for protection is a terrible myth.
Once you pull that trigger, that's it. There is no coming back.
65 Americans a day die by gun suicide. Store your gun securely, locked, unloaded, and away from ammunition. Help stop suicide. Learn more at endfamilyfire.org. Brought to you by Brady and the Ad Council.
Follow The Ron Show on Instagram at Ron Show Radio.
Heard weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. on Georgia Now, Progressive Voices at 11 p.m. and wherever you podcast. Once I get those podcasts up, I've been a little buried with some work between moving and setting up utilities and getting the new studio set up and launching Georgia Now and running my own station, etc. Been really busy, but we have Brendan on the team now, and Brendan is helping out with that. I'm joined with Bruce Fenger. Bruce, you said after Vietnam you went to UC Berkeley and became involved in politics. Studied analytical psychology there. You're a former stockbroker, adjunct instructor, and job coach for the mentally disabled. Your post on social media made the rounds, and I don't remember how it was I came about it, but you had some thoughts about the ending of the government shutdown in what was a little bit more of a positive spin than I think most left of center minded folks came away with. I mean, a lot of people were pissed, especially on the left, because they felt like they felt like the Democrats were finally in a position where they had the bargaining power over the GOP, and yet you kind of have a theory about Dick Durbin actually being the one playing the 3D chess here. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, consider who he is. He's minority whip. He's not running for re-election. Mm-hmm. He gains nothing in helping the purple guys reestablish opening the government again or whatnot. What it is we have no bullets. We might be running around with guns, but we have no bullets.
Yeah,
we're charging up the hill, and we're saying we'll keep the government closed. So what? The rich don't care. I mean, what is there going to be? Fewer IRS agents auditing their taxes?
Well, I mean, listen, I do have to point out, I live in Atlanta, the world's busiest airport, and they were shutting down private jet flights. They weren't allowing them to take off anymore. So, I mean, there had to be a little bit of paying for the private jet class.
Well, yeah, but consider, would you... the biggest thing that hurts them is they're going to have to wait for their $1 trillion tax break.
Yeah,
that's about it. Other than that, being delayed with flying their jets or whatnot. Well, I mean, life is hard when you're that rich, and you might have to spend an extra half hour on the tarmac. But I don't think it's that bad. The problem is we have, if we say close the government until they fund Romney Care, it doesn't matter because they don't care.
Yeah.
We can all starve for all they care.
Clearly.
And the Republicans serve the rich, and it's quite evident now. For some reason, Donald is able to talk to the poor and ignorant, but I haven't quite figured out how he's managed to do that. A little bit of a heist.
I mean, I've had my theories on that. I don't necessarily think Donald Trump is the Pied Piper. I think he is just as much a victim of the decades of disinformation that came from talk radio and conservative opinion columnists in the papers and Fox News and Newsmax. And he's no different than those that support him in that he is only as smart as most of them are when it comes to complex issues that, politicians have to face at the federal level. And because he says what they all come to believe as well, the crazy drunk uncles at Thanksgiving anyway, because he says the very same things, it emboldens them to believe that they were right all along, because this, air quote, successful, air quote, businessman is thinking the same way they are.
Stable genius.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a stable genius.
Yeah, so I think that's why he resonates with so many folks in that realm, because he's no brighter than most of the electorate that supports him, and it makes them feel smarter.
I think you're onto something there. The problem is they're the ones that's going to be righteously crushed by this, more so than someone living on the West Coast or even me in Michigan.
Sure.
I think probably the state governments will stand up a little bit. They have been.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is will these people recognize where the pain is coming from? Yeah. If we keep the government closed, the Republicans will say it's all their fault, and they keep on doing it. And that's what they've been doing.
But polls were showing that Americans realized it wasn't Democrats doing it.
Yeah, well, the polls show that we command something like 57% of the population right now. Yeah, it's not. The population is not, but in the majority, favorable to Trump or the Republicans.
Right.
But what it is a sizable block, and they have all the power.
Yeah.
They have the House, they have the Senate, they have the presidency, and they have the courts.
But you don't think the Democrats holding out to make the GOP finally cave and end the filibuster, which would have created some short-term pain for Democrats for 3 years, or at least a year, you don't think that holding out for eliminating the filibuster would have benefited Democrats on the long run?
I think that probably, if we're a minority party, we want to keep that filibuster. And we don't necessarily want to press on that too hard.
So let me elaborate on that a little bit and talk with you here about that. And I'll tell you why I think differently. Because as you mentioned, we tend to win presidential popular votes. Even when we do win over enough in the Senate to have a 50-plus, majority, we can't enact anything because of the filibuster. And I think Americans are drawn to strength. I also think that they're drawn to parties that can get stuff done. And I think a lot of the dissatisfaction that Democrats have with the general public is that they get into power and then they can't get stuff done that they promised they were going to do on the election trail. And what happens is Democrats don't politicize, they don't politic on or campaign on, because of the filibuster or because of the Electoral College or because of the uncapped House, all of these things that are very real and institutional problems with them getting things done. The American public just goes, well, we elected you and you didn't get anything done. And I think that's why independents find themselves waffling. And listen, not all independents are between left and the right. Some of them are left of the left. I think that's why Democrats suffer so much from, ebbs and flows in popularity, because when they do get the opportunity to do something, that damned filibuster is in their way.
To me, it seems like they're not really interested in winning. I mean, Trump model management, Epstein even. Who brought up Epstein? We were willing to go through a whole election, and we did go through a whole election without anybody bringing that up. Why?
Well, because the federal courts had those documents sealed. I mean, there was nothing.
Those documents don't matter. What we have is we have the metadata. Every phone call that guy has ever made, every email he ever made, every email that ever made to him. They're talking about files and stuff like that. We have everything that he's ever done. They got all his computers. They have all the metadata. Mm-hmm. You can find every message that he's made that went through any of those computers. They still have, and the FBI has that. And we're talking about some file. No, the file's not good enough. If you want to see the real data, let's start saying, hey, let's see it all. Not some little file somewhere. This is again, they didn't bring up Epstein because I'm quite convinced enough of them are dirty
Yeah.
that they don't want to play in that pool.
I could buy into
And
that.
if they start talking about Trump model management, all of a sudden you start running into these people again. You know, they would just as soon forget this part. But if you think about it, if we would have been pounding on Epstein, if we would have been pounding on Trump model management during the campaign, with everything else that we have, we would probably be able to beat their we're eating cats and dogs, or the immigrants are eating cats and dogs.
And maybe there was some reticence to throw Bill Clinton under the bus in the 2024 campaign cycle. I don't know. I just know that the Trump folks campaigned on releasing the Epstein files and have yet to do so. And it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire. I want to get back to the Dick Durbin theorizing that you were made, though, when it comes to ending the government shutdown and why you think this actually benefits Democrats. I don't necessarily agree with this, but I want to share it for those that need some optimism after this, because I think there was a lot of deflation on the left after the news came out Sunday night.
I realize that a lot of my readers stopped reading me and told me so.
Yeah.
Hey, it's just my opinion.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is. But the way I figure it, the only people getting hurt here is us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if we're trying to force them to fund Romney Care for another year or another month or whatever.
I keep noticing you're calling
they're not going to do it.
I keep noticing that you call it Romney Care, and I can appreciate that.
Well, it was his plan.
Well, it was
a Heritage Foundation plan.
Yes.
All it is it was a way to feed insurance companies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they laughed all the way to the bank opposing it, you know.
Yeah.
And once the Republicans kicked out the mandatory enrollment, it became it's a boondoggle. We're taking our tax dollars and we're subsidizing health insurance companies so they don't have risk.
Yeah, and instead of subsidizing,
how insane is that?
Yeah, instead of just paying for the health insurance for those that need it. Yeah, no, I mean I agree 1,000%. The ACA was a capitulation to the industry to keep it intact. That just kind of put a Band-Aid. I hate to use the health term there. To put a Band-Aid over a gaping wound. Absolutely right. The ACA was not the dream scenario for those on the left back in 2009. No doubt about it. But it did lower, or at least slow, the growth of healthcare premiums and make it so that there were rules to prevent those from being denied coverage due to pre-existing conditions, et cetera, and so on. So,
as Obama said, and he made a point several times, that we shouldn't reject the good waiting for the perfect.
Yeah.
And the problem is we accepted something that is not good, and it was immediately sabotaged by the Republicans.
True.
Who knew exactly how it would fail because they're the one that set up the plan to begin with.
So what do you think the end game is here, I guess is my point. What do you think that Dick Durbin knows this is leading to that the rest of us don't?
Well, I don't think that there's any win here for us.
I see.
I mean, if we keep the government closed, they keep on going for the SNAP benefits. They'll keep on going. They'll eat us alive. And the Obamacare, or Romneycare as I prefer to call it, will expire anyway.
Yeah.
But if we keep the government closed, the Republicans will say, well, we were willing to talk to them about it. Yeah. We even said, we'll talk to you about it after you give us a clean bill. Yeah. Now, this sounds enticing, but when we get down to talk about it, when it comes to the votes, they have the votes. So they will kill Romneycare.
I call it. I've been saying this for a few days now. They are Lucy with the football, and we're Charlie Brown coming a kicking.
Yeah.
So I think that's how it's going to play out as well. By the way, we're with Bruce Fanger, former stockbroker, adjunct instructor, life coach, job coach with the mentally disabled. I don't disagree. I think that's what's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is what I don't understand is why Republicans at this point aren't going to acquiesce when they know that they're going to face the backlash in the 2026 midterms?
Well, this is the beauty of it all, is they're going to have to vote to kill Affordable Care Act.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that we have any John McCain that's not going to vote.
Right.
So they will kill it. But it will be killed with the government open, with them voting what they said they wanted to do, and it's going to be their fault. There's no way that they can say that the Democrats did something when they have it all their way.
And you believe that
and it will be a disaster.
Yeah,
it will be a disaster.
Yeah, you think that'll benefit Democrats in 2026? I kind of do.
I think that there's nothing we can do to stop it. What we have to make sure of is that the fingers are pointing at them.
Yeah.
They can't have a cover, the government was closed because of the Democrats, so that happened. We would have voted for it otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
We just can't have it. We have to have them actually vote to kill it. And then have the results, as painful as they are, before the next election.
Yeah.
The problem is we didn't have the votes this time.
Yeah,
I mean, they took everything.
Yeah. I feel for the American people here because we all know inflation is still going up. We're not going to get the inflation numbers anymore. We're not getting the job reports number anymore because they obviously don't look good to the White House, so they don't want to release them. But the American people know that they may not be able to pick their foot up and see that they stepped in shit, but they definitely smell that they stepped in shit. And I think that's just kind of one of those things that, as you opine, I believe that come November they're going to know that they stepped in something, and who dropped the tightly coiled turd on the sidewalk that they walked into in the first place.
Well, that's important that they know.
Yeah,
and that's why I was for Durbin's gamesmanship here.
Okay.
Just simply because otherwise it's too easy for them to point back at the Democrats.
This is going to be disastrous, not just for healthcare premiums and not just
for everything.
It's the economy.
Across the board.
Yeah, I mean when you hear families, when you hear working families talking about having to bear the expense of what is a high-end used vehicle cost next year in their healthcare premiums going up, that is going to come out of grocery budgets, holidays, shopping and travel budgets, vacation travel. The economy is going to suffer as a result, and we're already dealing with the tariffs affecting inflation. This is all going to come to bear on the people in power. It has to. I mean, the American people can't be this dense, can they?
Yeah, and the biggest thing that we have to do at this point is make sure that they're getting all the credit for what they get.
Messaging, no, you're 1,000% right.
They own the government, let them have all the credit.
Messaging. No.
None of it for us. I mean, we tried to stop you from destroying Obamacare. You did anyway. Okay, we opened up the government for you because you said you would vote.
Yeah.
I mean, it gives us. It will happen anyway.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we can do to save Obamacare at this time. If we let it expire, they'll let it expire, and they'll laugh all the way to the voting booth.
There you go.
And we just can't afford that. We can't have any of our fingerprints on this at all.
Bruce Fenger,
there has to be all them.
I appreciate you giving me some time today and elaborating on what you believe is a shrewd move by the Dick Durbins and the rest of the Gang of Eight that decided to reopen the government from the Democratic Senate caucus. I appreciate you joining the Ron Show today. I'll share your
one thing. I'm not a Democrat. Even though I appreciated the move this time, I don't consider myself a Democrat. If the fascists weren't in power, I'd probably be against them.
I see. That's interesting. Fascinating. Okay. I have a friend who says he's an independent, and I'm like, it's like saying you're bisexual. Just go ahead and kiss a man. Just go ahead and kiss a man. Yeah. Anyway, I appreciate your time. I'm running a little bit short, but I do appreciate your time on the Ron Show today. Thank you so much for letting me call you.
Okie dokie. Thanks for the call.
Final few minutes, today's Ron Show. By the way, thank you so much for hanging in there. I know listening to any audio conversation, podcast, show or otherwise, you go 2 hours, man. We should come up with a badge for that. Boy Scout, Girl Scout, Day Scout. They, them scout. I want to get back to the 50-year mortgage thing because someone did the math so that I didn't have to. I'm not a mortgage guy, so I always rely on my lenders to do this for me. But one of the realtors that I used to work with at my first brokerage, his name is Casey. He posted this to his own social media, and you know what? He's made it public, so I'll make it public on my Facebook as well. That'd be at Ron Show ATL. He said, I was wondering about a 50-year mortgage and how it would play out with equity and payments. Here's my calculations. Let me know what you think. From the desk of Casey Sears Real Estate, he says, the 50-year mortgage, let's do the math. $500,000 home at 6% interest. For the full term of a 30-year loan at $29.97 a month, less than $3,000, just barely less than $3,000 a month, you would pay $1,078,920 total. $1,078,920 total for a $500,000 house. Isn't it already crazy that you spend twice as much for the house that you paid for list price? To me, that's already crazy. So that's for the 30-year loan. For the 50-year loan, you would get a lower monthly payment. Instead of $29.97, you'd be paying $26.32 a month. But over 50 years, that comes to $1,579,200 total for a difference of a little more than $500,000. A little more than $500,000. The house that you bought for $500,000 would cost you $500,000 more with a 50-year loan than just your average ordinary 30-year loan. Now, what would be interesting, I wish Casey had done this, the 15-year mortgage, which again, I know most people can't afford a few hundred extra dollars on top of that. But look, if you're buying a $500,000 house, clearly you're doing something right. He goes, that lower down payment ends up costing more than $500,000 extra over time. Well, sure, but it's 50 years. What's $500,000 over 50 years, right? He says most homeowners don't stay for 30 or 50 years. The average is about 7. He's right. He said, so after 7 years of a 30-year loan, you'll get about $82,000 in equity when you sell the house. Okay, that's a nice little, tidy sum to walk away with. $82,000 in equity that you'll have earned after selling the home. That's before, of course, you pay the agents to sell the house. After 7 years with a 50-year loan, you'd walk away with about $29,000 in equity. That's about a $53,000 difference. You'd save roughly $30,000 in payments, but lose over $50,000 in equity. So you're coming away with less money either way. And you're coming away having paid a lot more for a $500,000 house, either way, with a 50-year mortgage. This is, again, where I'm going to mention, by the way, that I am a residential realtor in Metro Atlanta myself. And I talk to my buyers all the time. Again, not being a mortgage lender, but just being someone who is outside the lending business. Like, I have no stake in what you wind up making your monthly payment to be, whether it's a 15-year loan or a 30-year loan, or there's no such thing as but God forbid, I would caution anyone against a 50-year mortgage loan. First of all, most people don't buy a house until they're in their late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, early 40s. You're not going to outlive it. You're never going to outlive it. You're taking money away, not just from yourself, the opportunity to own your home outright for yourself when you retire, but you're also taking away that generational wealth that I was telling you about that is so important to impact you in buying a home. You want to leave wealth for your kid or kids, right? A 50-year mortgage is taking money away from them that you are earning while living in that home. But hey, if Director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, Bill Pulte, formerly of Pulte Homes, the mega home building company here in the U.S., can convince Trump that a 50-year mortgage should become the norm, well, it certainly helps home builders like Pulte Homes build and sell for profit more homes while you pay a little bit less per month, but make a lot less in equity. And of course, never come to fruition will you see the owning of that home, because you're not going to outlive that mortgage more often than not. Thank you so much for listening to The Ron Show. We air weekdays 4 to 6 p.m. on Georgia Now. The Georgia Now app available on the App Store and Google Play or at heargeorgianow.com, also on iHeartRadio. You can also catch the show 11 p.m. weeknights on Progressive Voices or wherever you podcast. Show notes, as always, at ronshowatl.com. Take care. See y'all tomorrow.